Hi, my name is Zane.
And I'm Christina.
And we work for Clean Energy Action here in Boulder, Colorado. And today we're going to talk to you a little bit about a thing called carbon budgets.
Okay, so carbon budgets, what does that actually mean?
A carbon budget is a total amount of CO2, or more generally greenhouse gases, that you can emit and still end up staying below a given amount of warming. So on the personal scale, that might be some number of tons that you get to be responsible for emitting over your lifetime. And on the national or global scale, it's in gigatons, which is billions of tons. It's a fixed amount. If you go beyond that, then you get more warming. And so it's a budget that you have to kind of live within as a civilization.
So in most policy decisions, we talk about emissions in terms of total emissions per year or rates of emissions, but this isn't necessarily the best way to plan or think about climate change.
So why are carbon budgets a better way to think about climate change than those rates?
Carbon dioxide that we emit today will stay in the atmosphere for a very long time. And although there's a lag in between when we emit carbon and when we actually feel its effects, we'll feel its warming for centuries.
The fact that the CO2 stays in the atmosphere for centuries, for much longer than really normal human planning timescales, means that what's important isn't when we emit it in the next few decades, it's how much we emit overall.
Let's think about this in the context of 2 degrees C, which is apparently the only thing that the international community can agree upon. Any given temperature target has a corresponding carbon budget that allows us to stay below that target.
So if we want to keep warming to less than 2 degrees C, what is our carbon budget?
We can release about 1,000 gigatons over the next century to have about a 2/3 chance of staying below 2 degrees C, according to the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC.
1,000 gigatons sounds like a lot. How does that relate to the amount of carbon that we emit today?
Today, the world emits about 40 gigatons of CO2 equivalent per year. At that rate, we'll burn through the entire budget in just about 25 years, or by around 2040, which is well within the lifetime of many folks alive today.
What's worse, the rate of emissions is increasing, not decreasing still. And unless we turn that around, we may well end up burning through our entire budget in less than 25 years.
So 1,000 gigatons is sounding like a little, not a lot.
So where do all of these emissions come from today?
Currently, about 2/3 of our total emissions comes from burning fossil fuels. The first third comes from the fuels we burn to make electricity and heat. The second third comes from mostly transportation fuels and industry.
The last third of our emissions isn't actually from burning fossil fuels at all. A lot of our emissions actually come from our material economy, doing things like making cement or making steel or synthesizing fertilizers for agriculture. And zeroing out the emissions from our material economy is much more challenging because what you actually want is the chemistry. You want the CO2. It's not about the energy that you get from burning something.
So what does this mean going forward?
What that means is 1,000 gigatons is a small budget. Actually, it's a very small budget. If we want a decent chance of keeping warming to less than 2 degrees C, and by decent here, I mean 2 out of 3. And 2 out of 3 is about twice as dangerous as your average game of Russian roulette. Actually, not totally safe. What we have to do is somehow take that same 1,000 gigaton budget, and instead of burning it in the next 25 years or even less, we have to stretch it out and make it last for the rest of the century or even the next couple of centuries.
But we keep emitting! About 400,000 tons of CO2 has been released just since you've been watching this video. We keep using up our emissions budget, and the longer we wait, the harder it's going to be to stay under our target.
Because any carbon that we burn today is carbon that we don't have available to burn later. In the long run, we have to stop doing anything that results in greenhouse gases accumulating in the atmosphere. That means we need to rebuild our civilization to be very close to net zero emissions.
Unfortunately, calculating the carbon budget is not the hard part. The hard part is figuring out how and when it's spent and who gets to spend it.
But we're going to wait until next time to tackle that topic.
See you then!
Bring a stiff drink.